Okay, so preseason is insane right now. I know it's probably insane for a lot of you guys, but I have a sneaky suspicion it's not that crazy over in Korea. What is up, ProGuides family? Christoph here to give you guys the best new build straight from Korea to give some order to the chaos that is preseason right now. I'll be honest with you guys, I have not been having a good time learning these new items, but I think that after a couple more days of grinding, I'll probably get the hang of it. If you're lost just like me, well then this is the video for you. We're gonna be covering builds across every single role, so probably your role, so make sure to stay tuned till the very end. And as always, for a question of the day, which name of any new item do you like the most? Personally, I love Chempunk Chainsword. I think that's a really cool name. It's also really fun to say. I know there's a ton of other ones, and I'd love to know what you guys think down below. And with that being said, let's get into the video. First up, we're going to be talking about the top lane. And up in the top lane, the People's Champion, or in some cases one of League's most popular villains, has once again risen to the top. And that is none other than RIVEN. RIVEN, one of League's most iconic solo queue champions, appears extremely promising in the preseason. We've seen a ton of solo queue players in Korea place a lot of priority on her. While difficult, she's extremely rewarding, and most of the players in Korea are up for the challenge. There's a lot to talk about in regards to RIVEN this season. I know it's going to seem like a special treatment, but it's just absolutely amazing what players are figuring out with her right now. Let's run through what players are running on her. First up are runes. For runes, you're going to be wanting to go Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Last Stand, Cosmic Insight, and Magical Footwear. While you can tech in Legend Tenacity based on preference, attack speed is quite valuable on RIVEN as it'll allow you to attack faster and thus let you combo faster as well. Cosmic Insight is important as well, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. For stat runes, players are taking double Adapted Force, surprisingly meaning they actually don't take the ability haste stat. And to be honest, that is quite surprising. Now the items are where you need to pay attention. For items, you're going to be taking Gore Drinker as your mythic. This item is absolutely broken on her and honestly will probably be the best choice for RIVEN even after nerfs. In the same way you could use Ravenous Hydra for animation cancels and new tech, Gore Drinker allows you to do the same thing. Since it's your mythic item, it's great to know that you'll be building a core item while simultaneously gaining access to a bunch of technical moves you can bust out. Gore Drinker is also everything RIVEN wants in an item. It provides health, damage, some health regeneration, but most importantly, it provides ability haste, and legendary items are also granted more ability haste as well. We know how important it is for RIVEN to have her abilities up as soon as possible. Following up on the Mythic, you're going to be looking to complete the build with Ravenous Hydra, as Serelda's Grudge or a Black Cleaver based on the enemy team's comp, either Plated Steel Caps or Mercury Treads, Death Dance, and Maw of Malmortius. Against teams with heavy AD, you can tech in Randuin's instead. A nice little bonus is that you can proc Hydra off of your Gore Drinker's active effect, meaning that you'll deal an incredible amount of AoE damage. This is why you'll want to be running Cosmic Insight. You'll not only lower the cooldown of these important items, but also have your flash up before your opponent if you end up trading some time during the laning phase. That was a big mouthful about RIVEN, but she's super hyped right now, and I know a lot of players are loving playing her. If you're looking for someone fun but challenging, this preseason might be a great time for you to pick her up. She is really hard though, so go get a coach on ProGuides.com if you really want to take RIVEN seriously. We now have a guarantee that you'll climb 5 divisions with our Pro subscription, or we'll give you an additional 6 months for free. Next up, let's talk about MORDEKAISER. He's been making his return and looks extremely powerful with the new items. First up, let's run through the runes. For runes, you're going to be running Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, Last Stand, Bone Plating, and Revitalize. Mord lacks mobility, and you'll usually be the target of plenty of crowd control when chasing down enemies, so Legend Tenacity is quite important for him. For items, you're going to be taking Riftmaker as your mythic item. The Omni Vamp already says enough for him. This item also provides damage that ramps up over time, very fitting for MORDEKAISER as he's typically participating in extended fights. Following this, you're going to be building a Rylai's, Zanya's Hourglass, Plated Steel Caps, Spirit Visage, and a flexible last item. We'll suggest Morellonomicon because of how much healing is present in the game, but you might need a defensive item depending on the enemy's team composition. Once you finish both a Riftmaker and Rylai's, you're going to be an absolute menace in fights. The slow makes it extremely hard to escape, while Riftmaker can make it quite challenging to take you down. I pretty much ban Mordekaiser every single game. He is so annoying to play against. Please let me know if you guys do the same in the comments. I don't want to be alone on this one. Alright guys, that covers the top lane builds, so let's take a look one last time as we head into the jungle. First up in the jungle we have Graves. Yet again, Graves is just too good, especially amongst high elo players. First up, we're going to be talking about runes, which are practically the same as before. You want to run Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Absolute Focus, Water Walking, Triumph, and Legend Alacrity. All standard stuff, as runes haven't really changed all too much this patch. Now for items, this is where things get pretty edgy. We've all been there. You see Graves for a single moment and then he just blows you up. Except luckily for me, I play tanks, so it's usually the other way around. But blowing people up is the intent of the new Graves build that's circulating. And to accomplish this, the mythic item of choice is Prowler's Crawl. When used, Graves can dash through his target and then proceed to throw out his full combo to burst them down. Prowler's Crawl amplifies Graves' follow-up damage, meaning that unsuspecting foes are going to get absolutely blasted off the face of Summoner's Rift and sent to spawn. It's honestly quite terrifying and can be really difficult to play against when he's ahead. For the full build, you're going to be building a Prowler's Crawl, Youmuu's Ghostblade, Plated Steel Caps, Edge of Night, Cyrilda's Grudge or Black Cleaver, and finally a Guardian Angel. You can trade out the Guardian Angel for whatever item works best against the enemy team, so you can be flexible with that item slot. Another candidate for Prowler's Crawl is Lee Sin. First, let's get into the runes though. Again, even with Lee Sin, it's a very standard setup and one we've seen before. The runes are Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, Last Stand, Magical Footwear, and Cosmic Insight. Now for items, like we said, Prowler's Crawl is the choice of Mythic. Prowler's Crawl works extremely well with Lee Sin's high burst damage, but more importantly, it adds some extra mobility. You can use Prowler's Crawl's active as a way to get behind your opponents and proceed to use your ultimate on them. It's kind of like an easier way of insect kicking someone back to your team. Because of Prowler's Crawl's somewhat short cooldown, you almost always have it up when your ultimate is also available. This means a lot of things. You can ward hop behind enemies to bait their flash, and then proceed to Prowler's Crawl behind them, and then kick them. Or you could just use the item to close the gap and smack your enemy around a bit before you use your simple Q and R combo to burst them down. Either way, I'm afraid of this new Lee Sin, so please don't hurt me too bad. Overall, it opens up a ton of gameplay options, and we definitely believe this will be a great purchase on Lee Sin, unless the item receives massive changes. For the build, you're going to be buying a Prowler's Claw, Edge of Night, Black Cleaver, Death's Dance, Plated Steel Caps, and a Maw of Malmortius. And with that, we're going to be wrapping up the jungle, so take a look one last time as we head into the mid lane. The first mid lane pick we've got in mind is SYLAS. I've been playing a lot of Malphite recently. He's very strong, so I highly recommend picking him up. And SYLAS is just so annoying against Malphite. My god. It's as if the enemy team just picks SYLAS every time because of how good Malphite's ult is. Anyway, Night Harvester is proving to be quite the pick on SYLAS this preseason. And with that, let's run through the runes first. You're going to be getting Fleet Footwork, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity, Coup de Grace, Perfect Timing, and Biscuit Delivery. Next up with items, we're going to be starting with Night Harvester, Mythic, followed by Lichbane, Zanya's Hourglass, Demonic Embrace, Sorcerer's Shoes, and a Spirit Visage. You can tech in various other items, like if you're against an AD comp. For example, you can replace Spirit Visage with some more armor. Night Harvester is the item of choice for SYLAS because of the immense amount of ability haste it provides, alongside the added mobility it gives you. Hitting an enemy champion will provide you with a burst of movement speed, allowing you to maneuver through teamfights with ease. Starting with frontliners, you can slowly work your way to the backline and utilize the bonus movement speed to stick onto more evasive foes when you do manage to break in. Demonic Embrace is another new item that works extremely well with SYLAS. It provides him with some well-needed tankiness when he jumps into the fray, while also providing him some extra burn damage. He's looking pretty strong with these new items, and you'll definitely want to give him a try. Mid lane is looking kind of busted overall, and you can learn more about how to push for advantages on our website. The next mid lane pick is none other than QIYANA. QIYANA's kind of interesting because everything about her right now screams Duskblade. With her Q, she can already disorient her foes by stealthing in the middle of fights. After picking up a kill, she can then stealth and reposition again, and we honestly do think Duskblade is great on her. However, and it's a big however, Eclipse is just way too broken right now. It also works rather well on QIYANA's trade patterns, supporting a get in and get out playstyle for her. The shield, as well as bonus movement speed and even the built-in Omnivamp, make the items so appealing. For runes, you're going to be running Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, Biscuit Delivery, and Time Warp Tonic. That does mean you'll want to start with a Corrupting Potion, as the extra sustain will be invaluable. Finally, for items, you're going to be building Eclipse, Yomu's Ghostblade, Boots of Swiftness, Edge of Night, Zerelda's Grudge, and an Umbral Glaive. What we want to explain is the change of boots that's occurred this patch. Boots of Swiftness is actually what you want, not Boots of Mobility. Because you're using Eclipse, Boots of Swiftness will prove to be superior. The whole point of this mythic is to allow you to be tricky, dodging in and out of fights. However, the moment you attack someone with Boots of Mobility, you get downgraded to Tier 1 boots. Instead, running Boots of Swiftness will allow you to retain the full movement speed at all times, and even provide slow resistance to ensure you're out. The final mid lane pick is one we've actually seen Faker play quite a bit recently, and yes, that is Seraphine. Someone is actually playing her mid as Riot intended for her to be, and I would say that he's a pretty good player. Maybe just a little bit better than me. So for Seraphine, let's talk about her item starts first. We'll mention her build in just a bit, but I want to note that Faker has been starting with Doran's Ring, not Tear of the Goddess. Tear of the Goddess leaves you far too vulnerable, while Doran's Ring provides you with some essential base health to ensure that you have a chance at surviving the early game. Now let's run through runes. For runes, you're going to be running Summonary, Mana Flow Band, Transcendence, Scorch, Biscuit Delivery, and Magical Footwear. While Gathering Storm is extremely powerful in the later stages of the game, taking Scorch allows you to have much more presence in the early game. It's a personal preference, but especially in high elo, you'll find that Scorch is a must. For stats, you're going to be taking Ability Haste, Adaptive Force, and a flexible defensive rune based on matchup. To complement this poke-based playstyle, the mythic item you can look at is Liandry's Anguish. You're often going to be poking down enemies with your Q, you'll benefit heavily from the ability haste it provides, and as an enchanter, you'll naturally thrive in longer fights. It all checks out, but you can definitely feel free to experiment with other items. Following up, you'll build Ionian Boots of Lucidity, Seraph's Embrace, Cosmic Drive, Zanya's Hourglass, and Rabadon's Death Cap. Seraph's Embrace acts to ensure that you won't run into mana problems, while Cosmic Drive synergizes well with all the ability haste you'll be building. It'll provide you with the necessary mobility to stay safe during fights as well, and we all know that you need to stay safe, guys, especially during COVID season. I hope all of you guys are staying safe, staying inside, just play some League of Legends. Don't take any risks this season because it's going to be a double whammy of the flu and COVID. Come make some friends on our Discord and pass the time until a vaccine comes out. It's a very safe way to enjoy yourselves. All right, guys, that covers the mid lane, so let's hop into the bot lane next. So we've all been talking about how broken Eclipse is, and we all know there's one marksman who's absolutely notorious for building assassin items. Well, I guess there's two now, but is Varus even a champion? I don't even know. I'm sorry, Varus mains, it was just a joke. Please don't hurt me. JHIN players have been building Eclipse, and I'd argue it might actually be the right mythic item for him, whether or not the item is overtuned. JHIN is already the type of character to benefit from on-hit movement speed. Fleet footwork as well as built-in movement speed upon crits plays a huge part in his gameplay, and Eclipse is basically another bonus effect that accomplishes the same thing. While the cooldown is increased for ranged champions, it's still a pretty powerful item on JHIN, as the extra movement speed and shield can come in clutch. It also provides Omnivamp, which will synergize very well with the rest of JHIN's loadout. For runes, you're going to be running Fleet Footwork, Overheal, Legend Bloodline, Cut Down, Nimbus Cloak, and Absolute Focus. Overheal, the Eclipse Mythic, and Legend Bloodline will make it easy to constantly possess an extra shield. With that extra shield, you'll have a little bit more breathing room to work with. And next for the items, you're going to be building Eclipse, Yomu's Ghostblade, Rapid Fire Cannon, Boots of Swiftness, Edge of Night, and Mortal Reminder. Standard lethality JHIN build, but it's proving to be very powerful since you'll now get some free sustain built into your mythic item. Eclipse also causes your other items to provide you with some extra armor penetration, which is a nice addition to all the lethality you're building. Our next marksman is going to be Ashe. Her runes haven't changed much, so let's run through those first. You're going to be using Lethal Tempo, Presence of Mind, Legend Bloodline, Cut Down, Biscuit Delivery, and Approach Velocity. All this standard stuff, but the reason you want to run Presence of Mind is to make sure you don't run into mana problems. There's no Essence Reaver in this build like last season, so you might actually run out of mana unlike before. Now for items, you're going to be building the Kraken Slayer Mythic, followed by Runan's Hurricane, Berserker's Greaves, Infinity Edge, a Tiamat, and a Bloodthirster. Tiamat, yes, that is right, Tiamat. First though, the reason you want to run Kraken Slayer is because of how quickly you're able to attack with Ash. You'll benefit heavily from its passive and also the increased attack speed you gain on subsequent purchases. This item will provide extra true damage to help you cut through tanks' resistances and even through squishy targets, because when isn't true damage good? The biggest change in this build is the incorporation of Tiamat into the build. When you use Runan's Hurricane alongside Tiamat, you create a Ring of Death. No guys, I am not talking about marriage, I am talking about League of Legends. Each bolt will apply Tiamat, so you're effectively dealing damage in big areas every time you attack. Whether or not this will get nerfed is uncertain, but it's definitely very powerful right now and something you should look to consider using. Unironically, this exact build, except for a couple of runes, is what you want to run on Twitch as well. Except with Twitch, the Hurricane and Tiamat synergy is even stronger because of his ultimate. There's insane range on it, and the fact that it already hits all units it passes through makes this combo even stronger. For runes, you're going to be running Lethal Tempo, Overheal, Bloodline, Cut Down, Gathering Storm, and Absolute Focus. Unlike Ashe, who wants to run Approach Velocity for her built-in slows, you can opt for more offensive stats as your secondary runes for Twitch. Should games get delayed and go late, you'll definitely be able to 1v9 games when you manage to pick up your items. This build is absolutely devastating on him, but we'll reiterate one more time for you guys. It's Kraken Slayer, Runan's Hurricane, Berserker's Greaves, Infinity Edge, Tiamat, and a Bloodthirster. Alright guys, that covers the bot lane build, so like always, we put them up on the screen for you one last time as we head into supports. So for supports, we've got some more use of Eclipse. Yes, I'm getting tired of talking about Eclipse, but it is strong right now, and this time, it's going to be to Pantheon support. My god, are we still playing League of Legends? I know Pantheon support's been strong for a while now, but between the new items and then talking more about Pantheon support every week, my god, this is a different game. This rogue solo laner gone support has always been able to utilize lethality extremely well. Eclipse is great on Pantheon because it gives him some extra bulk when he decides to go for heavier trades. Once the shield breaks, he can also use his E to soak up some more damage or use it to retreat. However, one thing to take note of is the fact that you'll want to rush an Umbral Glaive first, then finish up with Eclipse. Its cheaper price point and ward clearing utility are essential to Pantheon's gameplay. Ideally, you'll roam a lot and thus will want to make sure you're not stepping over wards on your journey to pick up free kills. For runes, you're going to be running Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, Coup de Grace, Hextech Flesh Traption, and Biscuit Delivery. Next for items, you're going to be building Eclipse, Umbral Glaive, Boots of Mobility, Pauldrons of White Rock, Guardian Angel, and finally a Chempunk Chainsword. With a much more viable Grievous Wounds option, Chempunk Chainsword is a great way to round out builds, and you're definitely free to build it much earlier against enemies who have too much healing. Against supports with a ton of sustain, you could go as far as to rush an Executioner's Calling. Finally, we've got Nautilus support. While the build is actually quite vanilla, we have to talk about the mythic item of choice most players are going with right now. Sunfire Aegis is actually what all top-level supports are building. The tank mythic item with the most damage is ironically the one even supports have decided to settle on. This is because, well, they're able to just 1v1 an enemy marksman if they build it. It seems like the suffering never ceases for marksmen, and the amount of damage Sunfire Aegis provides creates another threat on a team, even if they're a tanky one. For runes, you're going to be running Aftershock, Demolish, Bone Plating, Unflinching, Cosmic Insight, and Minion Dematerializer. Cosmic Insight is great for the reduced summoner spell cooldown, namely Flash, as having it back up before your opponents does create small windows of opportunity. Finally, for items, you're going to be building Sunfire Aegis, Boots of Mobility, Zeke's Convergence, Knight's Vow, Gargoyle's Stoneplate, and a Dead Man's Plate. With that said, guys, that will conclude this episode of Korean Builds. My god, it's been a strange one. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If any of you guys are like me, then I am having a huge headache right now, but I think that I'll probably understand what's going on in the meta probably next week. I'll be grinding it out for the next couple days. I'm pretty excited for it. And once again, if you guys need some help, go check out ProGuides.com. We have your back. That's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you on the Rift.